Mr. President, it is with great sadness that I announce the passing of our friend, Delegate Harry Robert Bob Purkey. Bob passed away on Friday, February 16, 2018. Bob was born July 13, 1934 in Parsons, West Virginia. He had a rough childhood, but was blessed with a loving sister, Nancy, and devoted, protective grandmother. He moved to Norfolk, Virginia with his family and graduated from Maury High School. It was while attending Maury High School that he met his future wife, Sonia Firing Purkey, who attended the rival Granby High School. After high school, Bob attended the Norfolk division of William & Mary. Bob could not afford to go to college full-time, so he worked while attending night school for 8 years to earn his college degree. By then, William & Mary Norfolk division had become Old Dominion College, and then later Old Dominion University. He was a very proud ODU graduate. He also proudly served in the United States Army Reserves. Bob and Sonia married in 1957, had 3 wonderful children, Harry, Charlotte, and Greg Purkey. Like most young married couples, they lived in a cramped quarters in a starter home in Norfolk for several years. Bob was working at Continental Grain Company while attending night school. Then, in the late 60s, he was given a job with then Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Ferner, and Bean, today Merrill Lynch. Bob worked for Merrill Lynch for over 5 decades until his retirement in 2015. Bob loved history, government, and politics. As a young college student, he was energized by one of his professors' first political campaigns, that of G. William Whitehurst. Thereafter, Bob was involved in local and then statewide politics. The family moved to Virginia Beach in 1970, where Bob became involved in numerous community organizations and civic organizations. In 1985, he ran for the House of Delegates representing the 82nd District. He won, along with the rest of the Beach Boys. He was sworn into office in the General Assembly in January 1986. He served in the legislature until his retirement in January of 2014. He loved meeting residents from his district, helping solve problems, working to improve the Commonwealth. He served then and chaired various committees within the legislature, including, in his 28 years of service, including the chairman of House Finance Committee. Bob loved public service. And he did all of this while still working full-time at Merrill Lynch. Bob also served the community through various boards and foundations, to include the AAA Foundation, the Virginia Aquarium, and the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation. Bob was a high school athlete in several sports. His love of sports and his community combined when he served as a recreational league coach for football and basketball for many years. He spent most summer evenings at ball practice for years and years on Saturdays coaching and attending games. If it was a Saturday in the 1970s, it was a day with dozens of kids running around with Bob Snag Nesbitt, George Parr coaching football, and with Bill Emerson coaching basketball. Bob loved helping the kids. Bob was a fantastic role model for hundreds of young children in our community, and he considered his coaching years one of his best accomplishments. Because of his long career in finance and in politics, many people knew Bob, but I would say they'd like to share some of the things that made him a funny, a great friend, sweet dad, and devoted husband. Bob loved war movies. He could flawlessly whistle the theme from the movie The Bridge Over the River Kwai, and would drop everything on the weekends to watch reruns of that movie. He loved to cook. He made gigantic pots of stew on weekends, fudge on cold winter nights, and fabulous ribs all summer long. You could see Bob Friday nights shopping for the weekend at Fresh Market or at Farm Fresh for his fruits and veggies. His Thanksgiving dinners were legendary. And if he couldn't find the largest turkey in town, he certainly got the second largest one. Brad the butcher would always ensure that Bob got the biggest turkey he could find. He always made sure the folks at Beach House Incorporated had a big Thanksgiving dinner. He had fabulous weekends with the family at their Sandbridge house, starting in the mid-1960s when there was no city water, no phones, few houses, lots of adventures to happen, though. Bob taught his children, all of them, how to fish. On summer evenings, they would be seen surf casting or on the back pier with a cane pole and a bobber and bloodworms. He taught his kids how to mark trails in the forest, how to make the perfect whole hog barbecue, how to start a roaring fire in the fireplace. It was in Sandbridge that Bob introduced me to his longtime friend, Eva Teague Hardy. He loved Eva. We shared many dinners in Sandbridge, and they always started with great stories of travel, the growth of Sandbridge, and the growth of Virginia. He would tell me, you have to stay close to her. She's brilliant. And my friends, let me tell you, she was brilliant, and she was a friend of Bob's for decades. Then there was the snake stories. Dick, you'll love this. Bob, in his Sandbridge house, climbed up the ladder with a shotgun, would shoot at the snakes as they'd come up from the water. And as he was blasting away at those nasty snakes, the police came out. So the officers talking to Bob about shooting the snakes, and then Bob pointed to him and said, "Hey, look behind you." The officer jumped up on the ladder and said, "Shoot him, shoot him." He used other colorful terms, but we won't say those. But Bob would just laugh, telling that story until we were crying in tears. It was hilarious. Then there was a story about the dune buggies on the sand. There were no roads to Sandbridge then. You made your own roads. Bob chatted with me every week. He'd always call and say, "D-Steph, what have you done for your country today?" And I would tell him about my morning workout ritual, push-ups and sit-ups. And then he would always tell me, "Remember to salute the flag." He would always end with, "Have a great day, my friend." And I would tell him, "Thank you, sir." And you knew that he meant it when he said, "my friend." He loved to read and used to read 5 newspapers every day and underline the key points in red pen. Then he loved sharing the news stories with everybody. It was great. He would talk about the brilliant minds that were out there driving the economy and driving the leadership of Virginia. He loved golf. He loved playing golf with his buddies. Bob had a close group of friends that he would introduce to everyone at the Cavalier. And at his favorite restaurant, Aldo's, where he would always see his buddy Ken Hall or Harvey Shiflett. Bob had a bit of a left foot when driving, especially on the trips to and from Richmond, so many thanks to all the Virginia State Police who kindly told him to slow down on those many trips back and forth. He was once pulled over for speeding in Virginia Beach and was told that the plates on his car were not his and it was not a validly registered car. The plate was the number 5, which, as he put it, belonged to an old lady from Williamsburg. And he was so mad that he was pulled over for that, and the ice cream had melted on his way home. I was on city council at the time, and he told me that I'd better educate our police officers on what House of Delegates plates meant and to fix that problem quickly. About a year later, I brought it up to him over lunch, and we laughed so hard that we were crying at Aldo's. We had a couple of people come over to us and just ask if we were okay. Bob could laugh like no one else. He was a very kind, generous, very outgoing gentleman from the true word. He told everybody that they were so smart, so beautiful, so handsome. He hugged everybody. We'll miss those big bear hugs. Bob loved the General Assembly and the people here. He would always say that it's not the bills that passed, it was the bills you stopped from passing that really counted. He'd also tell me about his friends on both sides of the aisle, and would also talk about the folks in the Senate. One of the neatest stories was when Bob talked to me about Rosalind Dance, Delegate Dance at the time, and her perfect hair. Delegate Lucas, he would always say, "You got to be careful with her. Don't get her mad at you. She'll put you in your place." And then he would always end with, "But she has a heart of gold." He told me a lot of stories of Lee Ware, the old days, and how Lee Ware was up and coming, who's now our chairman of finance on the House side. He had stories about flying the Concorde to France with his wife Sonia, the only vacation he would ever talk about, and how you could get from New York to Paris in 3.5 hours. More than anything, Bob loved his family and Sonia. He joins her in heaven as she passed away 6.5 years ago, right by her side with their dogs at their feet. Sonia was truly the only one who could keep them in line. Mr. President, I request that today when we adjourn in the memory of a great man, Delegate Bob Purkey. I ask that we remember his smiles, his big laugh, his generous spirit, his warmth, and his sense of humor. his compassion, and especially his love of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you very much.